I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. Well, what we have been predicting with all my guests and all the people for so long about gold is that at some point it would hit new all-time highs, or at least equal all-time highs, and that has happened. It's hit all-time highs in every currency. I've had people come out there and everybody was just waiting for the dollar. Ding, 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 ding. We are now at new all-time highs. At least it hit last week. New all-time highs are at or near. I mean, it's semantics. We're at new all-time highs for gold, and to have somebody with some real credentials come on, the new Mr. Gold, Bill Holter of JS Mindset. You know, his business partner is Jim Sinclair, and Jim Sinclair has recently dubbed you the new Mr. Gold. I couldn't agree with him more. And so, well, Mr. Gold, semantics. We hit 19, went over 1900. We're at all-time highs for gold. What's going on in the gold market?
Well, gold's been moving like a tractor in first gear. If you remember years past, and even if you go back 10 or 15 years ago, you'd get a paper smash in gold, and it would take 3 months, 4 months to recover. And then after the 2008 financial crisis, the amount of time to come back lessened and continually lessened. And we've seen over the last, we'll call it 2 or 3 months, every time they try to hit gold, maybe they get $10, $15, $20 for their efforts, but it only lasts a day, 2 days, 3 or 4 days at the most. So what that's showing is it's showing that there is constant demand, and that, along with the fact that supply has actually peaked and supply is actually declining a little bit because of the coronavirus.
So what we have now in the gold market, you have now millennials are supposedly jumping into the gold market. You have people selling their Bitcoin to go into the gold market. You have a pretty good demand. You have central banks not wanting to give up their gold. You have central banks wanting to buy more gold. You also have big players like Sprott buying silver. Let's talk about what you'd brought up a while ago, and you said there was this going to be exchange for physical, that this big demand was going to be happening. You said this months ago, and you said this is going to put more pressure on this, and it's going to drive the price, going to make the price go up. Bing, ding, 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 ding. You were correct that there was demand, that people are standing for delivery. What you said absolutely happened. So now what's going on? Are people increasing their wanting physical delivery of silver and gold?
Right. And you mentioned Eric Sprott. He's doing a new offering on PSLV of they're going to purchase 75 million ounces. And I'm not sure that 75 million ounces exists to deliver. I had spoken with Eric back in, I guess it was July or August of 2011, back at the last peak. And if my memory serves me correctly, at that time, he had ordered 30 million ounces of silver. So that's only, 40% of what he's doing now. And it took 4 months to get delivery, and it came piecemeal, and some of the bars that actually came were stamped after his purchase, so they didn't even exist when he made the order. So his announcement, I think it was last Thursday or Friday, really lit silver on fire, and it's been a smack to the shorts, because how do you short silver if the market's already tight and you've got a buyer coming in looking for 75 million ounces?
Where do you think the price is going?
There's no way. People ask me that all the time, and there's no way to come up with a number. The number is massively multiples higher, but you cannot put a number on it. For instance, with gold, how can you put a number on a dollar number on gold? Because you don't have all the variables. One variable is the 260 million ounces that the U.S. supposedly has. Do we really have it or not? Let's assume that we do, which I don't assume, but assuming that we do have the 262 million ounces or whatever, then the other variable is what's the the money supply. How much more debt in the future is going to be created? How much more money supply is going to be created? In other words, the pie is the 262 million ounces, and the slices are the amount of dollars outstanding. How many more slices are there going to be? So you can't you can't put a dollar figure on it because you just don't know how much more money is going to be printed. And there are some that say that money supply is meaningless, and that's completely foolish. It's logic and it's math, and to come out and say, well, it's all about confidence. Yes, it's about confidence, but if you have a central bank that has only one tool or two tools, create more debt, create more money supply, that is gold bullish. And Greg, I want to mention, a lot of people think that gold and silver are going up or up and down. Gold and silver don't do anything. An ounce of gold is an ounce of gold, and an ounce of silver is an ounce of silver. What changes is the value of the dollar. How many dollars it takes to purchase 1 ounce.
Are we going to get to the point where we get some giant, we're not going to deliver, period? Sorry. I mean, JP Morgan, Craig Hemke brought this up. He said they only lost $29 million ounces of silver in one shot. Either they keep shorting and keep losing their silver, or they're going to have to stop. Otherwise, JP Morgan's going to lose their silver. They got 120 million ounces left, according to Hemke. Are we going to get, and same thing with, I guess, gold too. I mean, there's all big demand for delivery, right? So are we going to get to some big crescendo moment at some point in these markets where a big order like Sprott for silver or somebody else buying gold is going to get, I'm sorry, we cannot deliver, will not deliver?
There is no rush like a gold rush. And the reason being, you get momentum followers, you get people that are greedy, that want to, quote, make money. And then you have the fear trade. And the fear trade is probably the most powerful. That's the most powerful emotion. And what you're seeing around the world is big money understands that we have a credit implosion coming, which is going to take the currencies with it. And where do you hide? And the place to hide is in gold and silver. We've talked many times before. I've spoken regarding the manner of COMEX, and that at some point in time we would hit a failure to deliver. And if you go back, June was a very, very big month for gold delivery. July is never a big month, but yet there's 25 tons, which is a very respectable month for a delivery month. But July has never been a delivery month. This is the absolute highest ever. And we're pretty close to August now, and there's still a huge open interest. So you could see what's happened with COMEX is it's looking like it's a delivery exchange, if you will, without the inventory. So you could see problems in the August delivery because the amount of contracts that are standing for July, and each month, by the way, at the beginning of the month, whatever is standing, you're seeing queue jumping. In other words, you've got new buyers coming in during the month, fully funding contracts and saying, I want delivery. So yeah, there is going to be the failure to deliver moment.
And you think it's coming sooner than later?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can see the demand. And like I said before, the supply globally has peaked. And we're one event away from a big push of demand into gold and silver. I mean, look at what happened. I think it was the end of March, early April. Look at what happened for retail gold and silver. From a Thursday night to a Monday, call it at noontime, dealers all across the country got completely wiped out of inventory. And then for the next I don't know, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, the supply was very tight. I mean, it got to the point with the U.S. Mint shutting down. I mean, Eagles were 6 to 8 weeks back order.
Gold Eagles or Silver Eagles? Or both?
Silver Eagles were more stressed than Gold Eagles.
And why do you think that is? Because people realize there's a higher probability of it going up, much faster on a percentage basis. You and Jim have talked about that before when you were on, that you think silver will be like gold on steroids is what you're
right. Exactly.
Your quote.
I think the demand shock in silver was the little guy. The little guy buys silver.
Yeah.
Doesn't gold, because I mean you're talking, it had gotten up to 100, and you could buy 120 ounces of silver for 1 ounce of gold.
Yeah. And now it's still about 80, 85 or 90. And still is historically it's out of whack.
Yeah, it's 82, and I think before the year's out, you'll see probably at least 50 to 1 on its way down. So the gold silver ratio is in the process right now of breaking out, or breaking down, whatever you want to call it.
And you're of the mind that the little guy says, whew, gold's at 1750 or 1800 or 1850, now 1900s, touch that. You're saying the little guy's going, what's cheap? Silver. I mean, even at 20-something dollars, 23, 22, with a commission 27, 28, 29, I don't know. Even that is going to look cheap a year from now, is it not?
Well, it is cheap. And yes, a year from now, it should be extremely cheap.
And
Greg, silver is undervalued. Let's look at it that way. The reason it's undervalued is it comes out of the earth at 10 to 1. That's God's ratio.
10 to 1, 10 ounces of silver for every ounce of gold.
Correct.
Okay.
And man's ratio had gotten to 120 to 1. And I can tell you which ratio is right and which ratio is wrong. The 10 to 1, and I think I've mentioned this before, the 10 to 1 ratio going back hundreds of years was discounted to 15 or 16 to 1. And the reason being, because you have to carry, or in the past, on horseback or whatever, you had to carry 10 ounces for every 1 ounce. And because it was an inconvenience, the price of silver was discounted to about 15 or 16 to 1. That's why we had that ratio for years and years. And then you had silver interest. You had interest on the East Coast and the West Coast fighting, and there was a devaluation of silver versus gold. And then you had paper contracts where you could push prices around, and they pushed prices to, like I said, 120 to 1, which is absolutely stupid.
Well, there's a whole, and I don't mean school of thought backed up by facts, and the facts are every ounce of gold mined is still there. Every ounce of silver is in some landfill, mostly in some device or something. It's gone. And so the stockpile of silver is way lower than any stockpile of gold. Isn't that right? Aren't we going to get back to some close to 15 to 1? Isn't that going to be the, some people say we'll get to 1 to 1. That 1 ounce of silver is equal to 1 ounce of gold because it's that rare. I don't know. It's going to come down. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think you'll ever see 1 to 1. You may see 10 to 1. When silver gets mined and when silver gets sold into the market, you could pretty much assume that 70% of it gets used. When I say used, it turns into jewelry, it goes into your computer, it goes into solar, it's used for medicinal purposes, and day after day after day, they're coming up with more and more new uses for silver. When gold gets mined, primarily it is mined as and used as a monetary reserve or a monetary asset. Yes, there is some industrial application, but it's minuscule compared to silver. Silver, like you said, and Jim coined the phrase that silver is going to be gold on steroids, and one of the reasons being is what you just mentioned, is that when silver gets mined, it primarily gets used, and there's no big hordes of silver waiting to, be sold at some point in time.
And you had said too, one of the topics that we were going to talk about is all roads lead to gold.
Right.
And I wrote that down, actually promoted it. I said, Bill Holter is going to talk about why all roads lead to gold. And that's not hyperbole. I mean, all the central banks, they don't want to talk about it. And the other thing too, have you noticed a void? We're hitting all-time highs on gold. Have you noticed a void of anybody on mainstream financial media even mentioning, hey, wow, gold's at right at new all-time high this last week. Gold's at $30 from new all-time highs, or $40. Wow. No. Why? Why do all roads lead to gold, and why the big silent treatment on I mean, listen, if Costco was hitting all-time highs, or if Amazon was hitting all-time highs, if Twitter was hitting all-time highs, if Tesla was hitting all-time highs, and it just did, there'd be big news, but not gold. So why all roads lead to gold, and why the cold shoulder?
Well, the cold shoulder is obvious because gold is the direct competitor to any fiat currency that a central bank, that central banks across the globe issue. So it's the arch enemy of fiat currencies. Now, all roads lead to gold. We'll talk about a couple things. First, you could just look at what's going on, and common sense says there's a big problem out there, and capital is going to need a place to hide, and gold and silver are the only monies that do not have any liability. In other words, all an ounce of gold or an ounce of silver is proof that labor, capital, equipment was used to create that. It's already been done, whereas everything else is a future promise. And promises are made to be broken. Now, stepping back from that, let's talk about Richard Russell's key phrase or key saying that the central banks must always either inflate or die. And where we stand right now, this is the quiescent point in time. The central banks have got to reflate, inflate, whatever you want to call it. Otherwise, the entire credit system, the credit edifice comes down. Now, if they don't inflate and they let the credit edifice come down, then what you have is you've got a massive deflationary event where credit implodes. But what most people don't follow it through to the very end is all the currencies themselves are credit. So if you've got the credit system coming down, it also takes the currencies with them. So on one hand, they have to inflate. And if they inflate, when I say inflate, I'm talking about they have to hyperinflate. With the amount of debt outstanding now, the central banks have no choice. If they want to keep the system up, they must hyperinflate. And what's your best place to be in a hyperinflation? Gold and silver. If they don't hyperinflate and they let the credit markets completely collapse and everything defaults, what's your best place to hide? Gold and silver. Because they have no liability. They are pure money.
Which is why they say it works. Gold and silver work well in the extreme. Exactly. Destruction of bonds, destruction of debt. Oops, I got gold, no liability. Hyperinflation. Crazy time, with Congress, and we're going to print money like crazy, and the Fed and the repo market, same thing. Take your pick your poison. You both end up living.
And that's why all roads lead to gold.
Yes, works well in the extreme. Whether they deflate it or they inflate it, it doesn't make any difference.
We're going to have a tail risk, one way or the other.
What do you mean?
And a tail risk meaning something that was thought of that could not possibly happen. And we're either going to have a tail risk of hyperinflation or a tail risk of complete credit implosion. And very well could be both. You could have the credit implosion occur, and the response is the Fed creates $100 trillion and puts it into the system, or a quadrillion, or whatever. That's the only response that central banks have at this point. if things get out of hand and credit starts to implode, they have to inflate it. It's inflate or die.
And I wanted to bring this up to you because I have a theory, but you're smarter than me, and I'll just admit it. We have this change shortage, and people don't realize that a Federal Reserve note is a note. It's a
Right.
unit of credit, like a promissory note. I was telling somebody this at my dentist office the other day, and I said, to see this quarter right here, it says quarter dollar. That's a Treasury instrument, and then we have all this change shortage. I think the banks are hoarding it. I think the banks are hoarding change, knowing that that's a different system and that's not going to be easily replaced. The dollar's poof. We just print some new ones to change it. Now we have a Treasury dollar, whatever. Tell me, why do you think that we have this big change shortage? I mean, it's up. Signs are up. We can't give any change. You have to round it up, round it down, whatever they're doing. Why do we have a change shortage?
Sadly, because I think this is an early move toward getting people ready for a digital currency. Now, I also want to ask, if there's a change shortage and people are noticing that, what are the reactions going to be when people figure out that, hey, I can't buy gold and I can't buy silver? Human nature, I mean, look at what happened with toilet paper. There were people who probably had like 150, 200 rolls of toilet paper in their house, but went out and bought toilet paper because there was a shortage. That's human nature. When you can't have something, man wants it even more. So once we get to known shortages in gold and silver, what do you think is going to happen there?
People are going to hoard, copper coated or copper quarters coated in nickel. I mean, that's what a quarter is. It's a copper slug coated in nickel.
Right, but there's really no true value to that other than
Copper than nickel.
Right. But my point being, you're seeing a shortage in just everyday coin. How do you think people are going to react when they find out we go into a shortage with gold and silver? What I'm trying to get at is human nature. Human nature is when you can't have something, you want it even more so.
I had some, and I'm not going to say her name, so it's okay for me to say it. But she says, I've got these savings bonds, and we've had them for years, and it's about, I don't know, it's a few $1,000s. And so, what do you think I should do with them? I said, oh God, go sell. I don't sell anything, so I don't sell gold or silver. I know you're a broker, and you're smart about all this, so you know really about the demand, supply, demand, the commissions, the premiums, all that stuff. But I just said, just go somewhere and convert it to silver if you can get it.
Right.
I mean, wasn't that what you would advise people to do? I mean, I know you work for Miles Franklin also on the side or part of your job, and you're a gold and silver broker. I mean, is that what you're saying people doing, converting $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 into some kind of silver or a few ounces of gold? Is that what you're saying at your other job?
Yeah, we're seeing demand, small demand, intermediate demand, big demand in the millions. People are looking for a place to hide. And the gal that you were talking about with the savings bonds, I've gotten to the point where when I talk to people about metal, I start the conversation off by asking them, is the U.S. government broke? And 95+% of the time, people are going to say, well, yeah, the government's broke, but it doesn't matter. Well, it hasn't mattered, but it does matter. And if the government is broke, who issues the currency? It's the Federal Reserve, which I guess now technically is part of the government because they were taken over by the Treasury. But basically, when you're using dollars, you're using hot potatoes because you're using something that was issued by a bankrupt entity. So what could the dollars themselves have as far as intrinsic value? Nothing, because the issuer is bankrupt.
And at some point, they're going to have some sort of massive devaluation of the dollar.
Well, Greg, you've already seen a massive devaluation of the dollar. You've got $1,900 gold. You've had over the last 5 years since 2015, when gold was 1,050. Now it's 1,900. That's what a 50% devaluation, 45% devaluation of the dollar. in 5 years. And going one step further, the way you're talking about a devaluation, yes, more than likely we're going to get a new currency. More than likely it's going to be digital, and you may get one new digital dollar for every 100 current paper dollars that you have now. I mean, I have no idea. I'm not inside, so I don't know what the plans are, but I could pretty much tell you there's already plans in place to do whatever they're going to do.
You're not going to get a new digital unit for every digital dollar you have now.
No, you're going to lose purchasing power. I mean, just look at history. Every time a currency has failed, the population loses their purchasing power. And just because this is the United States doesn't mean that we can break the laws of Mother Nature. We are going to face a huge drop in purchasing power and a huge drop in the standard of living. And we've said that for years, and been trolled for years, and now here we are.
Yeah, we're on the doorstep.
Right.
Here's the other thing, and nobody talks about this. I think this is strange, and I want to bounce this off you real quick. And I brought up to my people on my weekly news. I brought up many times the president, and nobody asks is so stupid. He says Germany owes us $1 trillion, and nobody says a word. I'm thinking we still have a bunch of their gold. Hold on. And China, the China virus. This is a China virus. They caused all this damage. China caused this damage. Did I tell you China caused this damage? And they hold $1 trillion of our treasuries. What's he getting at? Do you think there's something more there? Reason why he brings this out overtly? I mean, also China's a big landholder in America. Just give me your take on it. What do you think? Why does he? And nobody asks the question. They're too stupid to ask a question. They're too worried about calling the Kayleigh McInerney a lying, B word.
Yeah, I mean the worst case scenario is that we default on the debt to China, or we nationalize from Chinese citizens or corporations any assets that they have in the United States. I mean, that's war. That's financial war, and I truly hope we don't go that route, but that it's possible that that's what they're thinking about. But
well, what just happened in Houston. You live there. I mean, here they have consulate down there is a big, ripoff factory, and also to undermine America. I mean, they shut it down. I mean, we're kind of at war already, are we not, with these, weasels?
Well, and you're seeing it in other places too. I mean, look at you just mentioned we still hold some of Germany's gold. Yes, and we still hold gold from other nations from after World War II. But look what just happened to Venezuela. On $1 billion worth of gold, Britain says, "Oh no, we don't recognize your president. We recognize the other president. So too bad. You can't have your gold."
I mean, isn't that what we're going to do? I mean, Germany's one of the biggest gold holders that we're holding under the gold. They thought Russia would blow in there, which I don't think that's going to happen. But there were the other countries that didn't fund NATO either. I mean, I think this is what Trump is getting at, but I could be wrong. But what do you think?
It smells like financial war.
We're going to confiscate all that gold you had us hold over the years? Yeah, it's ours. You didn't pay we protected you for 40 years. You didn't pony up the 2% you were supposed to at NATO. So, yeah, it's ours. Thank you.
Anything is possible.
Woo. So this is going to get dicey from here. And then I got to get into this because I know you watch everything when you're writing the riots, and I get tired of these people. It's protesters, and one guy writes this a story. I don't want to bring him up, who his name is, but it starts out with they're going after the protesters with federal troops. They're not protesters. They're Marxists wanting to undermine America. They've said so. They've publicly said so. They have Black Lives Matter, Antifa. They're rioting out there in Portland. Of course, there's only 5% of the people out in Portland are black. And they're rioting out in Seattle with their chop zone. You have all these big companies out there, Microsoft and Google and all these other big companies. There's multiple big name companies out there on the West Coast who are China friendly, as Richard William Barr said that they were kowtowing to China, and they're going to replace you ultimately if you keep going this route. The heads of all these corporations. We are in a hell of a mess with Marxists trying to take over the country, and including the Democrat Marxists, because that's what they've turned into now.
Well, Greg, they're paid anarchists is what they are. And unfortunately, even if they get put down, even if these Democratic governors do sell everything, the damage is already done. They've already, if you want to call it the infrastructure, the businesses, they've destroyed the infrastructure, the businesses in cities. But worse than that, they've destroyed the mindset. Nobody wants to go into cities now. They've actually created a change in mindset where people are, just look at real estate. Real estate is outside circling any big cities. Real estate is very, very hot right now. You're seeing real estate go up for sale, and you're seeing 50,000, 100,000 bids over the asking price. And that's because people want out of the cities. But what does that do? How were these cities built? How were they put together? They were built using debt. They were built using credit. And we're now, we're just about to August 1st. August 1st will be 120 days late. And you've seen big corporations, you've seen all kinds of restaurant chains, etc., either go bankrupt or say, we're not paying our rent, we're not paying our lease, we can't pay the mortgage. It is the credit system. What they've done is they've fired an arrow through the heart of the credit markets.
And you're saying that these defaults, these we're not going to pay events, you think this is a big ringing the bell at the top of the credit system? You think this is what's going to take the credit system down?
Yeah, it's huge. Think about it. If you have a mortgage and you don't pay it because the federal government says, well, you don't have to pay for 120 days. If you're a banker, you pretty much know after 90 to 120 days, you're not going to get paid. But think about the other side of that trade. Okay, so you're the borrower. To someone else, one man's credit is another man's debit. So on the other side, it's an asset. And all of a sudden, that asset is not worth anything because it's not being paid on. So you've got pension plans, you've got people who rely on bonds for income that all of a sudden aren't getting it. And their bond's not worth anything because it's not being paid on.
Which is why we come back.
All roads lead to gold. Exactly.
No liability.
Exactly. And people are, it's human nature. People will wake up to that slowly at first and then all of a sudden. And when the all of a sudden moment comes, you either have gold and silver or you don't have anything.
And then you're going to need, and then when that day comes, you're probably going to need food, water, PB.
And lead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That PB is lead on the periodic table. So anyway, just talk about you and Jim is still alive and well and doing great. We love him, Jim Sinclair, your business partner. You guys have a subscription service. Talk about that just for a second. What do you get for that, and what do you expect to hear? And that you get to hear you and Jim Sinclair. Jim Sinclair and you are fantastic. But what do you talk about your subscription service?
Well, we do some writings, and we do at least one weekly 1 hour call per week. There's four of us, myself, Jim, probably the smartest client I ever had. Maybe not smartest, but I call him my cousin Vinny because you can't pull the wool over his eyes. Dave, and then we have a moderator, Denny, who does a really good job. But that 1 hour a week I think it's priceless. I listen to it every once in a while because I go back and listen to. We went over something, and I just wanted to make sure it was clarified. But it's good stuff. You're getting good information, up to date information every week.
Yeah, and also you write for the people that you used to put all the stuff on JS Mindset. You still put some of it on JS Mindset. It's very nice of you, and you'll have your JS Mindset where you're commenting on articles and stuff, which is very instructive and enlightening on jsmindset.com. But you also write articles for people too, as well as that, right?
Right, for the subscription service, yes.
Service. Okay, good. And what does that cost a year? $129,
A year.
Okay, so I'm going to put up JS Mice. It's a lovely site. I still have it on my favorites always. I've had it on my favorites for, I don't know, 10 or 15 years. But anyway, I always go to it and see what you're going to have to say about a story. And it's always, you sit there, even just the free stuff on the site, and look at it and go, oh, yeah, you have a little quip about something. And I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, okay. Anyway, Bill Holter, All Roads Lead to Gold, I believe is going to be the title of this. And I just appreciate you coming on. And anything you want to add? I mean, do you think that, what do you, just final thing, you've talked about this before, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but you and Jim have come up with, okay, here's how many ounces of gold that we say we have. Let's just take them at their word, whether they're lying or not. How much would the gold price be if you said, here's how many ounces and here's our debt that we know of? There's also the secret, hidden, creepy debt that we don't even consider. But let's just talk about the debt that we know about. Well, the price of gold is like 80 or 90,000 an ounce, right?
Yeah, I did the math. I think it was 2 years ago, using 21 trillion of just the on-books debt, and that, if it were to be paid off with the 262 million ounces, comes up to $87,000 an ounce. Now that we've added another, 5 or 6 trillion in debt, and forget about the hidden debt, which is probably $200 trillion altogether, but just the on-books debt, you're well over $100,000 an ounce now.
Wow. Wow. At one point, it was like, oh, that's crazy talk. And now with all the explosion of debt, and this also this hidden debt, this this missing money that Dr. Skidmore came up with and Catherine Austin Fitts have been touting, and all the bond debt churn, and maybe not so crazy. Yeah, that's what I think. Maybe not so crazy.
Hey, Greg, let me put it this way, and because when I did the math to come up with $87,000, I got trolled like mercilessly that Bill Holter is predicting an $87,000 gold. Well, let me put it this way: it's math.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dude, and you're not even considering what Dr.
Math. It's pure math.
I
That's
got
all
you.
it is.
You're not even considering what Dr. Mark Skidmore at Michigan State University came up with. I mean, this is a real number, folks. There's an extra additional 21 trillion out of DOD and HUD. That's a real number. Sorry, that's not tinfoil hat stuff. That was done by OIG reports. So, and then now Skidmore looked at the Treasury market and comes up with at least 90 trillion in churn. 90 trillion in debt they're trying to roll over. It's a cartoon. I mean, we live in a cartoon world. So anyway.
Well, we live in a cartoon world, and it's really hard today because pretty much 95% of what you read here, etc., is all bullshit. It's all fake.
Oh, propaganda. The mainstream press has turned into propaganda.
It's making life difficult because you have to dig through and vet pretty much everything that you see and read now.
I saw a Bloomberg article about what's going on in China. They've had massive crop damage. And they're like, oh, not going to be a long-term problem. All this Three Gorges Dam and all this 50 feet above flood level and the Yangtze River with 400 tributaries all backing up. And, they're buying record amounts of corn. So I don't know exactly how much damage there is, but they bought a record amount of corn from the United States, and they hate us. So evidently they either starve and continue to hate us, or they continue to hate us and buy our corn. So evidently they decided not to starve and still hate us. So anyway, I mean, there's big problems in China. I mean, that's for sure. You don't buy record amounts. While you're shutting down people's embassies and consulates, you don't buy record amounts of corn from your competitor, right?
It's call it the smoke of war. I mean, whether it be technological war, financial war, hot war, I mean, it's heating up.
Yeah, and civil war. I mean, that's the other thing. People are asking me, do you think there's going to be like a north and a south? No, I think every city is going to be ringed every city is going to be encircled.
I couldn't agree with you more. I've said that for years, that when the financial system comes down, they will ring fence cities.
Black Lives Matter are going to come out in some county in Texas. That's going to be a mistake. I got news for you. That's a mistake. Some county out in Missouri, that's a mistake. Don't do it. I'm not inviting violence. I'm just saying I come from the country. That ain't going to go. You're burning down my barn? Oh, you think you're going to burn down my barn? Oh, no, no, you're not.
Greg, I lived in Costa Rica for 5 years, and there were 2 home invasions every single day that were really not reported in statistics because they didn't want to hurt tourism. And I've lived in Texas. I lived in Texas before that. I've lived in Texas since then. And you don't see home invasions in Texas. You know why?
That's right.
Because people understand there's like a 90% chance that there's going to be a shotgun behind the door.
I like Texas. I lived in Beaumont, Texas for a couple of years. I love Texas. You know, if somebody's out there stealing your car, you can walk out and shoot them. That's equivalent to stealing your horse.
It's called the castle doctrine.
Yeah. Oh, you're gonna stand out in the street and throw a Molotov cocktail in my house? Oh, no, you're not. So anyway, it's gonna get rough. I mean, it's gonna. I mean, Walmart's out of ammunition all the time. I just go by there to see what they have, right? And they got 8-shot for 12 gauge and some 20 gauge, 7-shot, and that's it. I mean, they got a few 2.2. They got a few 243. No 223. A few 308s, nothing. They got hardly anything there. Either the people are buying it or they don't ship in it or whatever. But tough times are coming, are they not?
I have been saying it for a few years now. I mean, it's a shame.
Yeah. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Bill Holter, jsmindset.com. You're also a broker at who is it? Miles Franklin, right? Miles Franklin, also a broker there. You're expert extraordinaire, the new Mr. Gold, dubbed by Jim Sinclair, the former Mr. Gold. He's still Mr. Gold. We love Jim Sinclair. He's a good man. But anyway, Bill Holter, sorry, you're a good man. Thanks for coming on and spending the last 40 some odd minutes to explain the financial markets, gold market, what you see coming, and laying it out for us. Jim Sinclair, tell him I said hello. And Bill Holter, thank you for joining us on USAWatchdog.com.
Thank you, Greg.